Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Lukin and welcome back to our YouTube series. Today, again, we're here with Timothy Meyer and I'm very excited. We're going to talk about a brand new series which is about hypnotherapy. When people think about hypnotherapy, they might have different opinions of what what comes up for example. Or, I'm sure kind of like a lot about therapy, a lot of people learn it through movies. And obviously in the movies, it's sensationalism, right? Like that's kind of what they're going for. So just wanted to get your sense on, kind of what you think. What would you tell the viewer about what they're seeing in the movies and what it's really like?
Yeah, exactly. The movie sensationalizes hypnotherapy a lot. And it's really not anything like what you would see in the movies or anything that you would see on like stage hypnosis. It looks absolutely nothing like that. What it truly looks like is someone in a very relaxed state with their eyes closed, kind of just gently being guided in different directions by a skilled hypnotherapist to be able to access parts of themselves that are normally inaccessible, where they have resources that they need. It has nothing to do with, putting beliefs in their head or,
or eliminating some thoughts about wanting something or desiring something.
Right. It isn't like Inception or anything like that. What it really just looks like is someone in a very relaxed state, just sort of thinking.
Right.
And that's about it.
Right. And it sounds like from what we've said before, getting some access to maybe some other parts of themselves, which are not readily available when people kind of overthink and are a little bit more cerebral. But that's why I think we're doing this video, is just to make sure that we can explain it, and Tim, you could kind of go, at length about telling us like what it actually is, so that people at least might consider it for some of the concerns they might have.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. So I'll start off with what hypnotherapy is not. It's not somebody waving a watch in front of your face, with your eyes going back and forth. It's not, brainwashing someone to make them think differently in one way or another. It's not like stage hypnosis where, you're put under a trance and then you get the suggestion to cluck like a chicken, and before you know it, you're like walking around the room. It's none of those things. Really what it is, and this is my own kind of definition and interpretation of all this based off my experience, my trainings, really it allows us to access like what we call our subconscious, right? Mm-hmm. So typically we are mostly just kind of wrapped up in our conscious mind. Like I like to think of it as the front of our brain, which is where we could do all the amazing things that we could do as humans, right? And however, but because we're in that, like I call like the front of our brain, we almost like sort of lose access to the entire back part or subconscious of our mind. And in hypnotherapy, really what we do is we work to get people into a trance, right? Really, which is basically just a very relaxed state where we have more access to that unconscious, and we could sort of use our entire consciousness in a little bit of a different space in order to problem solve. Find resources that are inside of us that we need to address the issues that are coming up. And really, it's all about that. It's very vague. There's not necessarily like a script or like a do this first, then this, then that. Right. It's very free flowing, and people are able to sort of enter into these trances and achieve, how do I say it?
Almost sounds like accessibility.
Yeah, to their resources. And to all of the resources that we have that are normally inaccessible.
Now, this just comes to me now that we're talking about this. Some people use it for specific issues that they might have. Or what are your thoughts on that? Like I know some smoking cessation, for example. Or do you feel like you really integrate it into when you're working with people on a variety of different issues?
So personally, when I practice, I mostly do, I integrate it and I sort of weave it in, oftentimes depending on the case of the person, of course. However, sometimes people do come into hypnotherapy for a specific reason, like smoking cessation is always the biggest one, right? And really what it is, it's not the hypnotherapist putting you in this trance where you think differently and then all of a sudden you come up out of this dream and you're like, I never want to smoke again. It isn't like a magic trick like that, but But really, what a skilled hypnotherapist will do is sort of guide that person into a trance, and be with them in that trance where they're more open to accessing the resources that they need in order to quit, right? And then coming out of that trance, they sort of take that resource with them, and there's ways to do it in trance, but that's a much longer story. But they sort of take those experiences with them, and that informs what they do going forward.
I really like that. I really like that because honestly, before this conversation, I was kind of thinking that it is the hypnotherapy, like that's some sort of like almost I don't say insertion, that sounds too intense, but some sort of cognitive shift that happens and the person does feel like, oh, I have no longer urges. But I really like the way you explain. It's really deepening and having access to other resources that you can capitalize on when you come out of it, when you, let's say, do have an urge, or when a certain thing comes up for you, or a trigger where you do want to, let's say, smoke in this circumstance. I really like that because it really, and hopefully for the viewer as well, it really shifts in terms of how I'm beginning to think about what you just mentioned, rather than this sort of more simplistic way of like, you do this, you want to smoke, you come, you do this voodoo thing, you come out, no longer want to smoke. It doesn't sound like that, because that sounds too good to be true, to be honest with you, to begin with. But I really like the way you expanded on it, because it just makes a lot more sense. You access what you have and you put it into practice when, let's say, you do have an urge for something.
Exactly. So what it really looks like, it looks far more like regular or rational or real.
Right.
It's really just kind of getting into a different sort of space in our mind where we can access these things. And typically, I don't know, we're almost always in the front of our brain, and like even in a lot of therapies, we're in the front of our brain. And it's sort of interesting, like when I would call it like dimming the lights a little bit, and getting away from trying so hard. I think as we try, we just stay in the front of our brain. Like one analogy that I like to use is when we're doing a jigsaw puzzle, right? So you might know exactly what the piece looks like that you're looking for, and you might go piece by piece by piece, and then you don't find it, and you're like, what the heck? And then so you're really trying again. You're examining each piece like really, really intently, and you still don't find it, and you say, oh my gosh, like I guess we lost this piece. So, your attention diverts to another part of the puzzle, and then before you know it, you find that puzzle piece, and you're like, oh, there it is.
Right.
And then you plug it in. And it's as soon as we stop trying, we sort of find the answer or the thing that's been there all along.
Right.
And so many people come into rooms like this, like with an issue, with a difficulty, with a problem, where they're trying so hard to fix it. And sometimes we just need to have a little bit of a shift in how we're working with it, in more of a open and passive and in a trance, which we call the ultimate problem solving space. Getting into that spot, the answer oftentimes comes to us from inside of us, and we've had what we need all along. It's just been inaccessible because we've been trying so hard to fix it. So it's really just a whole different way of looking at issues and problems, and a whole way of addressing them, where it's more so just allowing people's resources to come up and knowing that we always actually have what we need.
I mean, again, and this idea of, it sounds like trust plays a big role, right? Like we're moving away from frantically solving something to deepening and trusting what the answers are from within, which I would imagine it's not an easy thing for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's interesting. Sometimes folks, like, they'll get into a trance for the first time, and they'll have just like all these resources come to them, and they're like, wow, great. Other times, like, it takes some practice to get into a really good trance. But really, my overall, what I'm hoping everyone, kind of realizes from this video, it's not voodoo. It's not anything like crazy like that. I think you probably see a lot and hear a lot in the media,
Right.
and it makes it seem like this like completely wacky thing, but it's not that wacky. It's far more normal than I think anyone would think. And listen, if you ask me, I think if folks have tried lots of different therapies and lots of things haven't worked, I think it's a shot. It's worth giving it a shot, because it's far different than almost all of the other therapies that I've been trained in.
Well, thanks a lot, Tim. This has been really helpful. Again, I definitely learned a little bit about the shift in terms of how most people think of hypnotherapy, and I hope you did as well. Well, again, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.